What's up, y'all? This is Chris, strength and fitness coach for Black Diamonds Fitness. Look, for people who want to get in shape, a lot of times the first question they ask me is usually the wrong question to ask. And that first question that so many people ask me is, what workouts do I need to do? Tell me the exercises I need to do. And that's not to say that training is not important. It is important, but you could have the best training in the world, and if your nutrition is not optimized for you to get the results that you're trying to get, the training won't work. So the training won't get you there. Nutrition, I would argue, is more important than the training piece as far as you looking and feeling the way that you want to look and feel. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Specifically, I want to talk to you guys about macronutrients. So my background is actually in chemistry, but I will try not to get technical about these things. It's going to be a pretty high level explanation of like what the main macronutrients are, what we kind of want to shoot for you to reach certain goals, and then also how to practically apply this. So in other words, if I'm telling you kind of what your macros need to look like, how does that translate into how you eat, how you shop, for your groceries, that type of thing. Okay, so number one, we're gonna start with everybody's favorite when it comes to fitness, which is protein. So protein is basically this nutrient, this compound that is used to build basically everything that's in your body. The proteins kind of dictate like what you can build. So protein is going to be a factor when it comes to building new muscle and maintaining the muscle that you have. So if you want to be toned, or if you want to get bigger muscles, you want to be more muscular, protein is a must. If you don't hit the adequate protein numbers, then you cannot build. And if you don't have adequate protein numbers while you're breaking down muscle in your training, then you're not going to look the way you want to look. Basically, when people say they want to be toned, what they're really talking about is maintaining their muscle while losing their fat. So if you lose fat and you lose your muscle, you're just flabby but smaller. So in other words, if you want to be toned, you have to make sure that you hit your protein numbers. So another thing about protein is that it helps you stay satisfied, so it curbs your hunger. So if you had a diet that's very high in protein, then you would tend to be less hungry. Protein also is, as far as calorie wise, is pretty low. So for every gram of protein that you have is about 4 calories. So in other words, if I tell you, hey, you need to have 25 grams of protein, if it's 25 grams of just protein, then that would be 100 calories. Now also, you spend more energy burning off protein. So that means that if we've got two people who run the same diet, say it's 2,000 calories a day, and one of them is 2,000 calories of just protein and 2,000 calories of just carbs. Now, people shouldn't do that. I'm just using this as like a cartoonish example. But if you did that, since it costs more energy to burn the protein, then you would see the person who ate only protein lose more weight because it requires more energy to burn those calories. So that's another good use of protein. Things that are high in protein are typically like your meat. So when people think about protein, they think like meats, they may think dairy, that kind of thing. But very rarely will you find food out there that only has one macronutrient profile. They usually have a mix of your proteins, carbs, and fats in different amounts. So, but anyway, when we're talking about things that are high in protein, we're usually talking about beans, dairy, meat, um, lean meat sources are usually your best source of protein. So that. All right, so the next one I've already mentioned, which is carbs. Carbs, the energy profile is similar. Same deal. Every gram of carbohydrates is about 4 calories. So again, if I have you do 25 grams of carbohydrates, that's about 100 calories. Now, what are carbohydrates? The short answer is it's sugar. Now, people can quibble with that explanation if they want to, but at the end of the day, they break down into glucose very easily, and so that's your breads, your sugars, including sucrose, fructose, straight glucose, dextrose, like all those. Um, breads, pastas, rice, your starches, potatoes, all those things, like those are in the realms of high carbohydrate foods. Carbohydrates can also be higher in fiber. So an important thing to remember about fiber, it basically isn't processed the same way as like those other carbohydrates. So you can almost take fiber as like not counting towards your calorie amount. So if we want to give again like a cartoonish example, it doesn't work exactly like this, but let's say you have something that's uh, 100 calories of carbohydrates. Let's say 1,000 calories of carbohydrates, and like 200 of those calories come from fiber. Then basically you can treat this at the same as just having 800 calories period of just carbohydrates, because that fiber is not dissolved and processed the same way as the rest of the carbohydrates. So you can keep that in mind as well. So the reason carbs are important is since it's so easily turned into glucose, easily used for energy. It's the primary source that we think about when we're talking about just energy in general. Carbohydrates are easier to convert into fat cells than protein is, but it's harder to convert into fat than actual fat macronutrients are. So carbs aren't necessarily bad, but you just kind of want to make sure that you understand exactly how much that you're eating and whether it's helping with your goals or not. So the last one is fats. Fats is going to be, foods that are high in fat would be like, your oils, butters, nuts have a high fat content. That's one of the reasons why, even though people say, have peanut butter or nut butters and stuff like that for protein, you can definitely go over your calorie intake because nuts are also high in fat. So if you're eating nuts for protein, you're getting more fat than protein. So I usually tell people don't snack on nuts. But your cells depend on fat. Like all of our cells have a cell membrane that is built from fat. So in order for your cells to function, for your body to be healthy, you have to have fats. So if you have a diet that is free of fats, if you have no fat source, then you will by definition be unhealthy because your cells can't function. So, but just like I said, that's the highest calorie content. It's the easiest macronutrient to convert directly into fat cells because the molecular structure is so similar. And then also the calorie content is higher. So instead of the 4 calories per gram like the other two macronutrients, your fat is 9 calories per gram. So just to reiterate, if I give you 25 grams of carbs or protein, that's 100 calories. If I give you 25 grams of fats, that's going to be closer to 250 calories. So you see how that can be problematic when you're trying to get your calorie numbers right. So the name of the game for your fat loss, if you haven't heard me say it before, primarily is your energy balance. So you need to burn more than you take in. So what we want to do is make sure that we have the right calorie intake, but at the same time, you want to manage those macros as well. So a good rule of thumb for me that I think is a good balance that doesn't like restrict you too much as far as the foods that you can eat. I think that a good split, macro split for just anybody would be like a 40-40-20. And so what that would look like would be make sure that 40% of your calories come from carbs, make sure 40% of your calories come from protein, and 20% of your calories come from fats. So what does that practically look like? That looks like if I give you a plan that's 2,000 calories, then that means 800 of those calories come from carbs, 800 of those calories come from protein, and then the remaining 400 calories come from fats. So just for example, in the same example I just gave, if you have 800 calories of carbs to play with, and we've already established that that 1 gram is 4 calories, well, now you have 200 grams to play with. So 200 grams per day of carbohydrates is your max for the day. And you can just structure it like that for your other macronutrients. So basically, when you're putting your meals together for the day, you just need to make sure that, and I'll do another video at some point about reading your nutrition labels as well, but you want to make sure that whenever you're putting your meals together, that whatever your calorie limit is for your fat loss goal, that it corresponds with the right macros. You just want to make sure that, say it's 800 calories of carbs is 200 grams. So now you have to make sure that between any meals that you eat, say you eat 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, you can split them as close to evenly as possible if you want to. You've only got 200 grams. So what that might look like is, I have 50 grams of carbs for breakfast. Well, let's just say 75 grams of carbs for lunch, and then I have 75 grams of carbs for dinner. That's all. Like, that's all you get. That's your whole budget. The cool thing about these macros, though, is that if you're on top of your macros, then you can basically eat whatever you want to. Like, as long as your macros are what they're supposed to be, it doesn't matter what you get those from a muscle, strength, and fat perspective. Now, there may be other implications when we start talking about health, but I'm talking to you I'm just talking about body composition. If you want to lose fat, you can lose fat just eating Twinkies as long as it's in your macros. I will go into on another video the different types of diets that people use. That's one of them that people use if it fits your macros. But there are different strategies. But I had somebody ask me about macros in particular, so that's why I decided to make this video, to just kind of give a brief overview of what they are, how they work, and how you can use them or manage them for you to hit your goals. So if you found this video useful, helpful, you learned anything at all, definitely hit the like, subscribe if you want to see or hear more, share if you know somebody who could use this information. And also, I'm currently taking new clients to coach. So if you have fitness goals and you think that I'd be able to help you reach your fitness goals, there'll be a link for you to apply for coaching in the description. And that's pretty much all I got for you. So until next time, y'all, peace.